रसिकरञ्जनि सभा वाழிய மயிலை रसिकरञ्जनि सभा வாழிய மயிலை रसिकरञ्जनि सभा வாழ்க 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 பல்லாண்டு வாழிய மயிலை रसिकरञ्जनि सभा வாழ்க 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 பல்லாண்டு வேதநாத கீத நாட்டிய ஜதி ஒளி எங்கும் நிறைந்திட வாழிய மயிலை रसिकरञ्जनि सभा வாழ்க வாழ்க வாழ்க.
Good evening, all of you, ladies and gentlemen, dignitaries on the main dais, Mr. Dr. D.K.Hari, Dr. D.K.HemaHari. Opening remarks, Mr. S.L. Narasimhan Sonnar, we are going to celebrate the Sengkol Day. I was told by Dr. Hari, 28th happens to be the Sengkol Day which we should commemorate. We are doing it on 23rd because the hall is not available on the 28th. As the chairman of the foundation, I would like to say a few words. The people who are known to me personally well, Dr. and Mrs. Dr. Hari and Dr. HemaHari, Bharat Gyan, they run an excellent institution. They are speakers to carry on the civilizational knowledge of this country. They do studies of civilizational knowledge. Wherever you have a lot of interaction on the dharmic way of doing things together. They have traveled extensively. They give regular lectures all over India and abroad. They are a couple who are most welcome in all societies. More of egalitarian society, cultural mix. They were regular visitors to the governor's Lok Bhavan, Raj Bhavan on the Lok Bhavan. Wonderful speakers. They carry the culture of India and spread. They are goodwill ambassadors. In fact, Indian ambassador to UN for cultural activities. Probably the present government at the center may do that.
இன்றைய நிகழ்வின் தொடர் சரித்திர நாயகர்கள் டாக்டர் ஹரி, டாக்டர் ஹேமா. இந்திய கலாச்சாரத்தின் விழுமியங்களை முழுவதுமாக ஆட்கொண்டவர்கள். எங்கெல்லாம் இந்திய கலாச்சாரத்தின் மேன்மைகள் ஒலிக்கப்படுகின்றதோ அங்கெல்லாம் நமது ஹரி ஹேமாவின் பங்கு அளப்பரியது. அவர்களது இந்திய கலாச்சார பிரசுரங்களை பற்றி பேச ஒரு நாள் முழுவதுமானாலும் போதாது. அவர்களிடம் சங்ககால இலக்கியம் முதல் இந்நாள் வரை செங்கோலை பற்றி பொதிந்து கிடக்கும் பாங்கை உணர்ந்து இந்த வருடாந்திர நிகழ்வை இன்னும் பல வருடங்களுக்கு அவர்களுக்கு ஆர்ஆர் சபா தாரை வார்த்து விட்டது என்பதே உண்மை. அவர்களது அறிவுசால் ஆத்ம ஞானத்துக்கு எங்கள் நன்றிகளோடு இந்த வருடம் அவர்களது கர்ஜனைக்கு காத்திருக்கிறோம். அவர்களது ஆய்வில் கிடைத்த மற்றும் ஒரு சுவாரஸ்யமான தகவல், செங்கோலை பதிக்கும் பழக்கம் நமது நாட்டில் மட்டுமின்றி பல அயல் நாடுகளிலும் இருந்து வருகிறது என்பதே. ஆனால் அதன் வடிவம் அந்தந்த நாட்டு மரபுகளுக்கு ஏற்ப மாறுபட்டு ஏற்கப்படும்.
டாக்டர் D.K.Hari மற்றும் ஹேமாஹரி அவர்களே. அடுத்த நிகழ்வு டாக்டர் ஹரி மற்றும் ஹேமாஹரி அவர்கள் ரகு அனந்த நாராயண் அவர்களுடன் ஒரு கலந்துரையாடல்.
Namaskaram to everybody, and you had listen to all the introductions that President Sir and Shri Nagaraj Sir gave so nicely about all of us. So we will quickly get into the conversation that you've been really waiting for. And it's very nice that we have a person here who has a good blend of background. He has been in engineering, he is an expert yoga practitioner, and something which was perhaps not said is that he has learned personally from Sri Krishnamacharya himself. So he is one of the very few fortunate people here in this hall who has had to get teachings from him very directly. And from such a yoga expert, whatever he would have conveyed through his mouth would have been so much, but without that, at a much higher level would have been even more. So you're really blessed, sir, and we are also blessed to be in conversation with you. And from there on, he has moved into corporate, and he is specializing today in corporate governance and advising people on dharma in corporate governance. So that is a next level of just governance and corporate governance. So we would like to listen from you, sir, as to what got you into this path. I mean, obviously you started with engineering, and I guess you started your yoga learning after that or before that. And from there on, what made you move into governance? Obviously, you moved into corporate governance because of dharma. You wanted to bring in dharma right then itself. So we would like to understand what triggered you in each of these steps, because that will give us, I guess, an understanding of where you see dharma in corporate governance.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll just start with a shlokam. Om Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarotam Pravaram Muninam Patanjalim Pranjaliranatosmi Abahu Purushakaram Shankachakra Sidharinam Sahasra Shirasam Shvetam Pranamami Patanjalim Shrimate Anantaya Nagarajaya Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Vagisha Yatishwarabhyam Samprapta Chakrankana Bhashya Saram Shri Nutna Rangendra Yatau Samarpitasvam Shri Krishna Maryam Guruvarya Mide Virodhe Kartike Mase Shatatara Kritodayam Yogacharyam Krishna Maryam Guruvaryamaham Bhaje Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Yeah.
Beautiful slokam. Our in KYM house, just at the courtyard, there is a beautiful vigraha of Patanjali, Maharishi Patanjali, and your name is Ananta Narayan. So I couldn't help thinking of it. Very nice.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. See, my trajectory actually starts with my meeting with Dharampalji. And I'm hoping people here would know about him. It's a sad thing that his name has been pushed out for many reasons. We won't go into that. But anyway, he was in Chennai for a long period. And many of us were very deeply influenced by him. And one of his challenges to people like me, M.D. Srinivasan, Junjunwala, many of us were together there, was that saying, now that you've finished your IIT and all that, are you going to run behind the tails of the West? And then his challenge was to say, if you want to really work in India, you first have to understand what is Indian. And to do that, he said that you ought to study with a master for at least 10 years. And the interesting thing was that he said at the end of that, don't come and tell me how great India is. Tell me what ideas you can implement. And if you can't implement it, let it go. It'll go to some museum or something, let it go. So a whole bunch of us took up the challenge, including my wife, Sashi. So what I discovered in this study of the Yoga Sutra, primarily with Krishnamacharya, and working with this particular idea, how do you implement? And also I've worked with a whole range of people, right from Dalit groups to working with craft groups, NGOs, plus CEOs and multinational companies across the board. And it's remarkable that, if you scratch the surface of westernized learning, the actual practices that people follow are based on our tradition. Unfortunately, they try very hard to present it in all the acceptable ways, as though management started in America. They have to put on that bhav, I guess. I don't know why. But anyway, the most critical idea that I found, which we have implemented, me, a friend of mine called Suresh, and Pradeep Prabhu, in a lot of large transformation things, is an idea very much related to Sengkol. Yeah, so I thought I'll discuss that. See, there's an interesting idea which is there, which is underpinning Mahabharata, Arthashastra and all that, which says that unless there is a balance between dandam, dharmam, and mukti, it's not a rule that will lead to growth of people. Right? And here the word dharma has a very well-defined meaning, which ought to be turned into a question. And the question is anything that I'm doing, whatever I'm doing, does it help me to flourish, help us to flourish, and the earth to flourish simultaneously? Only then it is sustaining. And the idea is that if more and more people understand this meaning of dharma, you don't have to use dandam, right? Because dandam is to be used only to avoid matsya nyaya, where the big fish eat up the small fish kind of a thing. That's when you use it. And the way you deal with these two ought to lead to emancipation. So each generation has to evolve. That's the meaning of the word mukti out here. See, the interesting the big implementation happened when we had to do some work with the government, the education department, Tamil Nadu. So Suresh, myself, and Pradeep were sitting and wondering, how do we work with the government? Everybody knows that it's corrupt, so on and so forth. So we gambled with an old mode, which I have found very, very quite strong in villages and many families actually, which is the idea of the kudam. Yeah, so in many homes you'll find, in the center of the home, there'll be an empty space that's called the kudam idam, right? And then when you come there without any role differences,
Absolutely.
or age differences or hierarchy differences. And the karta places a critical question to the group there. They then will dialogue and come up with a consensus. The consensus will be conveyed to the karta. The karta will then pronounce. After the karta pronounces, no more discussion, and each person knows their role very clearly. And by the way, the word kartavya means my commitment to the whole. Okay, it doesn't mean role as in duty and imposition. So each person then takes up this saying, okay, now that I know the direction we have to take, this is what I have to do. So we used this idea. So we worked with the whole department, and very interestingly, the IAS officer was willing to be with us. So the first time we worked with it was in the education department, and then we worked with it later with the PWD. And about 10 years after we worked with the PWD, we worked with the agriculture department. And that whole process has been documented by Bala Kailasam. It's available in 2 films. One film is called Neerunde Nilamunde, and the other film is called Writing on Water. So it captures 2 aspects of it. One was a little more of an international water seminar that happened, and how that happened, and where the work that was done here was reported. That's very interesting. The whole process is being captured in the Neerunde Nilamunde film. So the interesting thing there is, when you go to people in the villages and use the word dharma, they understand exactly what we mean. Right? So that's what we did. We worked with large groups of people and talked about dharma. And the most critical thing there is that when we worked with the PWD department first, there were a lot of engineers, and we don't take them straight into this. We do some little bit of work to contemporize the idea and so on. And then we put this thing of what is the dharmic thing to do. So these people came up with a redefinition of what their work meant. Okay? And it was really thrilling because they came up with it. They said, we are not here to be just PWD engineers. We are here to ensure water for the future generations. Right? And this is not a trivial shift. See, this is the dharmic realization of my kartavyam, no? And I found this happening with many organizations. I've worked with Parry quite a bit, with Parry Sugar, right? A lot of people coming from the agricultural background. They understood this, right? And when you work with these ideas, there's a whole way in which the whole group comes together and defines in their language what it means to work here. What does success mean to me? And the whole situation changes completely. Yeah, and we've gone years afterwards to see what is happening. What kills it is politics.
Unfortunately. Very true. Very well said, sir. And commendable efforts to bring in that monumental shift in a department that's thought non-movable, non-shiftable. You actually done something commendable in that, in PWD and education, all tough departments, both of them, all really appreciate you for that. And nice of you to start the dialogue about mentioning about Sri Dharampalji. And immediately our thoughts went to about 25 years back when we had the good fortune of meeting him in Sevagram, Varda. And spending time with him, literally that wooden cot with that the thick tape tied white cot, I don't know, charpai, that traditional cot, wooden cot, where I used to sit with him on the cot and she used to sit at the foot because I cannot sit down. So evenings I recall interacting with him in person. These are all great souls that we had opportunity to interact with and talk, not just what's in text, but so you have had the great opportunity of meeting such great people in your lives, and those things shape our thought overall. Yeah. To carry out these humongous tasks and still be humble about it. Truly commendable on your part on that. And you also explained what Dharma is so well and how it is the concept of Dharma. It is only in India that you have a doubt about, as the President mentioned. Whereas in Bharat, the people of Bharat, they know what Dharma is. It's only people of India who have a doubt what, they don't know what Dharma is. So there is a big difference between India and Bharat. That also in both the statements came out quite nicely. And bringing it to corporate, as you said so wonderfully, innately what we carry out is only our native perspectives. But we have to couch it with international terminologies to carry out the same is what you said, which is what has been happening the last 40, 50, 60, 70 years and beyond. So with the present new India policy of decolonizing the narrative itself, I hope with pioneering efforts like yourself, it will open up using the Bharata narratives, terminologies to look at our management styles in corporate governance to the way it is. So would you like to throw some further light on that, please, if you don't mind?
Yeah. There's a funny incident also, Hariji. When the film was made, Kailasam showed the film in engineering college because he studied there. And we had to explain the word dharma to all the English educated fellows out there. And after the film finished, there was a peon standing in the side, and he said, "Enna sir, padicha pasanga, avanga kitta 5 நிமிஷம் நீங்க வந்து தர்மத்தை பத்தி பேசுறீங்களே சார், இவங்க எல்லாம் எங்க சார் போய் என்ன சார் பண்ண போறாங்க?" Yeah. What is padipa?
So,
He was really stunned that people were arguing about this word. Yeah, but that's an extremely important resource. This understanding of these terms is still there.
So you're saying actually it goes way back into your education.
Yes.
So that is where
And
it
the
has to
childhood.
start for today's
the
times.
childhood, yeah.
And how do you see that happening from education into corporate? Because like you said, today even in corporate, you have this kind of a kudam, and the terminologies like they start with work breakdown structures and work breakdown, and then they say you're responsible for this, this is your role, that is your role. But the dharma aspect in that whole thing is missing,
Yeah.
both in terms of the people performing the role and the objective of the work itself. So
Yeah.
how do you think we can bring this back? Because you've had experience now in advising a few organizations.
Yeah, we've done it quite a few times. See, the first time when we go and talk to people, usually the CEOs understand what we're doing, yeah, but the rest of the group may or may not understand. So we don't introduce these words right away, and we introduce some other words like, for example, what's your job responsibility, what's your link responsibility, and what's your system responsibility. System responsibility is dharma, right? And then we talk about this, and then we take them through exercises, and we take them through a lot of experiential work before you can introduce a kudam to educated people. Yeah, but it works. And the lesser they are, the number of generations they are away from the earth. Yeah, most Indian families have a link with the agricultural thing. There's a definite relationship between the number of generations they have gone away from that to understanding some of these words, right? So the more so-called educated they are, the less they understand, the less they appreciate. But there are a lot of young people who are going back to some of these because they're sick and tired of what's happening. So there's a hope out there. The other thing that we are working on, which is directly linked to what you're saying, we're working with it in Auroville right now, we're working with it in a company in Ahmedabad and a few other places. One of the critical things that happens, see, even when we work with these kind of shifts in the mind, the organization gets caught with a measurement system which is colonial, hierarchical, and it actually comes from the armed forces. The whole organization design today is an armed forces design. It's meant to colonize. It's not meant to create dharma or mukti or any of that. It's only meant to follow dandam. Yeah. And not
Reward or dandam.
And not Sengkol.
Yeah, reward or
Dandam. Yeah, very clear. It's defined that way. So we are introducing an idea called Ashtalakshmi. Yeah, it's easy to work with it in places like Auroville and organizations where the head is an Indian who is not very corrupted, even though these people have gone abroad. They're not corrupted with very Western ideas. So the idea of Ashtalakshmi is to take the 8 Lakshmis and say, how will you translate this in current language? What does it mean? Dhanalakshmi is not the only Lakshmi. What happens if you don't look at the other 7? And then get them into a Kudam kind of a dialogic space and help each person to understand how to translate the 8 Lakshmis into the workspace. So that becomes the cornerstone of what defines the organization's success. Now, the very interesting part of this is that when the organization takes this up, the individuals go back and say, maybe we should run our families this way. Yeah, see, because today what is happening is the idea of commerce and the idea that money is the only measure of success is very deep. So families are not families anymore. Families are places which are utilitarian, where you're bringing up your children to be successful in a commercial context. Yeah, but when you look at this idea of Ashtalakshmi and bring it down to the family also, you start valuing the family as a whole. See, in India, the idea of individual actually doesn't exist. Yeah, the word Vyakti comes from Avyakta. So there is no Vyakti, there is only Avyakta becoming Vyakti. So the family is the fundamental unit of economic measurement, always. Yeah, when you make it individual, you create all the problems that you see, which will happen soon in India if we don't watch out: loneliness, transactional behaviors at home, and things like that. So when this idea of Ashtalakshmi is really internalized and they take it home, the entire process changes. Yeah, the way they deal with their bosses, the way the dialogues happen, right, at very different levels of the organization, all of that changes. So this is how we are taking ideas, we mine the tradition for ideas, contemporize it, and contextualize it to that particular unit. That's what we're doing, yeah. So we're living up to what the promise we made to Dharampal.
And you brought out this very nice few words, Kudam, Karta, and Kartavya. So this again goes back to wonderful traditional Bharata concept where you very clearly bring out Kudam is where all come together and all are equal at the point of dialogue. Very clearly, obviously. And there's one person who assimilates all this and takes the final decision. So that is the Karta. Could be seniority, age.
Articulates the decision. The decision is a consensus decision.
Consensus decision. Then, whatever that consensus decision is, all of us have to work our role towards it. That is our Kartavya. Exactly. So you brought it out very well. So, yeah, at a corporate level, management level, at a armed forces level, everywhere it is that. So all of us, we know our role. We have participated in the dialogue and we know our role. So it's you brought out the traditional perspective, how it's actually implemented through the millennia for this land to be prosperous, and how it could be very well implemented at the corporate scene. Very well said. So that's because I thought these are the key take-homes that we get, and which have relevance today to be used on a daily basis. Very good. So I think we are reaching the end of our time. One more point that you would like to bring forth on this perspective, please.
See, the other thing that we've used is, the idea of leadership itself. See, one of the, I think the corruptions in the mind is that when you look at a colonial militaristic idea of leadership, it's only a it's a one-dimensional idea. So a critical thing is to bring in a fact that leadership is not a leader, first of all. Secondly, when you use an idea like the Mahabharata, there are 5 types of powers, right? And all of them have to work together. Bhima is only one of them. Rambo is only one of them, yeah? And Bhima is not Rambo. Duryodhana is Rambo, yeah? So it's not a Rambo, Bhima who's a leader. In fact, there's a very interesting dialogue on the last day of the Mahabharata war where Yudhishthira and Bhima go and they want to know who should lead the thing today. So they go to Krishna And Sri Krishna says, look, if Bhima leads the war, he'll only escalate it. Yeah, the person who knows how to go in and create a peace after the war is Yudhishthira, so he should be leading it. Yeah, these are extremely important, very powerful
Valuable
ideas.
lessons.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what is Yudhishthira? Yudhishthira is that capability and that power where you go into chaos and create order. You create certainty, you create safety, you create structure. The moment the structure becomes too heavy, you kill people inside it, right? You need the entrepreneurship of Bhima. Without that, you'll get stagnated, right? Then you need Nakula. Now, Nakula is the person who is in service, who puts himself in the background and constantly creates the infrastructure. Yeah, Arjuna is going gallivanting. Now, by the time he comes home, somebody has to have kept the horses fed and the sword and everything ready. Right?
Arjuna is PR.
That's Nakula.
Arjuna is PR, right?
Yeah. No, Arjuna has got a special place.
Marketing.
We'll come back to him. Yeah. And yeah, you also need a person who is looking at the whole thing and figuring out the theory of what is happening, and that is Sahadeva. So if you go into the Mahabharata, before they go into the Ajñatavasa, they'll ask Sahadeva, where do we go? Because he's gone and figured out everything, and he'll give you the theory of where to go. Right? So you need all these four, and many Indian managers are Nakulas. And when you help them understand that their power comes from being a Nakula, where you create a context where everybody else can succeed, it is such a liberating thing. Because they want to imitate some Western, we know the number of Western frameworks, which is all pushing the Bhima type. And they feel I'm not adequate because I'm not the Bhima type. But the real context creating for other people's success is the Nakula. And then you have Arjuna, who can ask the most difficult questions at the most difficult times. Who says, why are we here? Are we in the right battle? Are we in the right place? And so on. So when leaders understand this, their whole approach to team building changes, their whole approach to their own way of looking at people and themselves changes completely. So that's another thing that we've used quite a lot.
I think you said you started off with a very profound point that on the last day of the war, should Bhima lead it or Yudhishthira lead it? Because it was very profound. The reason is, many people start off things, don't know how to end it. That's the reality of life.
Scale it up.
And scale it up or scale it down.
up.
We have a case now on hand in India. We knew how to start a war and end it in 4 days. We knew how to end it. Whereas others across the world have taken it to day 83, 84, don't know where to end. It's a reality.
Not just once, many times.
Many, they don't know how to bring something. So it is not just in drawing a column, you don't know how to end. It's there in every aspect of life. And as you said, this gives us life lessons for corporate environment as well as for, as you so nicely said, for Vyakti, Avyakti, and for both familial situations. The situations are very similar, whether it's post 6 p.m. or pre 6 p.m. Situations are very similar, and how we only apply these factors is what makes us more comfortable in life. Thank you. So a very eye-opening dialogue we have had with you, commendable, and we have been off and on knowing you, seeing your good work online and through good friends, and probably met once or twice in different functions.
You met my wife more often than you
Yes,
met me.
that's what she said first thing to her. And here I would like to thank Ms. Arunaprabha Ranganathan for sort of bringing us together in one panel. The takeaway of the quality of dialogue has been sort of very good. We'd like to thank RR Sabha for hosting the Sengkol Dinam every year. This is the 3rd year. About 3.5 years back, or little close to 4 years, when they first had a discussion with Srimati Arunaprabha Ranganathan, or a couple of phone calls and later in her house, that we need to celebrate this day, Sengkol Dinam, every year. he immediately took upon the idea and spoke to the president of RR Sabha and other members, and then with the secretary too. And then we've been having this program. The first year we had this program was excellent, big program. Followed up last year again with a wonderful program. This year, this is the third year we're having this program. And we'd like to thank, and each year we chose a subject of Sengkol that will be of interest to all of us to know, because there are features and factors to Sengkol. Many, many features. First year we did about the...
Yeah, so first year what we did was, Sengkol itself was new, and why are we celebrating Sengkol? So we brought in the way it was rediscovered and why it went into parliament and all of that, introduced it. The second year, what we did was how Sengkol, which Sri Nagarajanji also said, how Sengkol, the idea of a Sengkol runs all over the globe. Everywhere people have got something that keeps them anchored. And today, we are going to see what is the relevance of Sengkol in our day-to-day lives. Because you're bombarded with words like dharma, governance. So when you talk about Sengkol, you only think of dharma, governance, and much bigger things. But it has a relevance. The whole idea that we wanted to celebrate this Sengkol Day. 28th May is the day when the new parliament building has been inaugurated. So everybody else will be talking about that. But Sengkol has been a contribution from South India. We triggered the idea of Sengkol in the minds of people. It has been prevalent for millennia. But in 1947, this idea was re-triggered in people's minds, and the Sengkol went from here. So we would like, as South India, to celebrate this particular idea. And therefore, how this has relevance in our day-to-day life, if we know that, then we can appreciate and celebrate it much better. Lovely lessons from the conversation with Sri Anantanarayan. We have seen how kings have been holding this as a principle, which we can see from inscriptions. So that's why we put together this kind of an idea where you have corporate, where you have administrative governance. Now you will come to your personal governance. And thank you all very much.